Welcome, gardeners. I'm Uni from Redondo Beach, California. You're watching the Urban Gardener channel. Now, let's get growing.
Everybody, it's Earth Day. Welcome to Let's Get Growing, your weekly gardening live cast here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch, and I'm your host for this week's show. And we have a really exciting show for you this week. Our featured guest is radio and television host of Things Green, Nick Federoff. And we're going to be following Laura Smith of My Serene Garden on Instagram. So be sure to stay tuned for all these really great guests that we got coming up here in a little bit on the show. And if you are joining with us live, be sure to get into our comment box there and chat with us. Leave us some questions or comments that we can answer here a little bit later on the show, especially if you got questions for our guests. Leave those as well too. We'll be sure to get to those when we're talking to our guests here in a little bit. Also, give our show a big thumbs up. Hit the like button down below there. Let us know you're here, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. In fact, hit the bell notification so you can be notified of all of the upcoming videos and live streams that we have here on the Urban Gardener channel. And also, one of the things we're really emphasizing right now, help us get the word out about our show. We've got a really great show here. We've been doing for I think this is now our ninth show that we've been doing. So be sure to share with all of your garden friends, your garden groups. Let people know about this show so that they can come along and join with us and check out all of the really great things that we've got growing on here on Let's Get Growing. And also, too, be sure to check out our website, www.letsgetgrowing.live, where you can find out all about what's coming up on our show. You can check out past shows, future guests, and in fact, if you want to get involved with the show, like Uni from Redondo Beach, who did our introduction today, you can get to the get on the Get Involved tab at the top of that page and fill out our form there so you can submit either introduction for our show or even a garden story that we'll be sharing here later in the show as well too. Plus, if you go down to the bottom of the page on the website there too, you can sign up for our seasonal newsletter that should be coming out here pretty soon. So yeah, here we are. It's Earth Day today. We're celebrating Earth Day. It's another great show here on Let's Get Growing, and I hope that it's nice out. The weather is permitting for you to be able to get outside, maybe work in your garden, tend to all of those great plants, or get your garden started if that's the part of the country that you're in right now. Or, if it's nice enough out, go take a nice hike somewhere out really nice, a nice park or a trail or something like that, and just really kind of get out and enjoy Earth. It's Earth Day, so we want to be able to get out and enjoy our great planet, the only home we have. So yeah, I hope that you guys all have a wonderful Earth Day as well too. So yeah, and for me this week, I've been just getting out and planting. I mean, weather has been really great. It's finally time for us to really just get things planted around here. I'm pretty sure. We still have maybe a couple of weeks until our last frost date here in Southern Oregon, but oh man, the weather's just feeling right. Hopefully I'm not being fooled by anything, and starting to get some of those plants out that you might want to wait just a little bit for, but I don't know. I'm just a little too anxious, so I got to get them out. I got to get them going. We've got lots of starts and lots of things growing right now. I've got all my tomatoes germinated and growing. I've got my peppers germinated and growing. We've got cucumbers, melons, squash, all these sort of things that we're getting planted and direct sowing out this next week. So, yeah, lots of things growing on in our garden right now. I'm so excited. It's been a long wait for me, especially here, as I've kind of been in this transition period, or kind of a limbo, as you might say, because of not knowing whether or not I was going to be able to continue staying, and I rent the place that I live in. So whether I was going to be able to stay here or not, because the owners had decided to sell the property this last fall. And it's been since this last fall until just this last week that I found out whether or not I was going to be able to stay here in this place I've been living in for the last 11 years. And all of my gardens that everybody's been able to see on the channel for all these years, I've been sharing them, So we did finally get the news. This is what I shared in my last garden journal video this last week, was that I got a new owner. They closed on the property, and we're good to go. As far as I understand, that we're all set to go. We don't have to move. And so that just was a big relief for me. And also just kind of opened up the opportunities of being able to get out and get growing finally, because I didn't want to like start too many things. I didn't want to get too involved with a lot of things if I was just going to have to say tear it up and move out here in the next few weeks. But no, we ain't got any of that to worry about. It's just gardening and growing from now on. So I'm really, really excited about that. So this last week has just been kind of like just pushing it. I've been trying to get as much cleaned up, weeded, all of our areas, ready to grow. We've been topping off all of our beds and our containers and all the different growing spaces that we have with our compost, and just getting them all ready, to plant out. So I'm excited about sharing that all with all of you guys here in upcoming garden journals. So again, as I said before, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can catch up with all those garden journal videos of all of the things that we actually have growing in our gardens. And so with that, I think it's time to go check out what's going on in the garden with our friend Mark Roche Colbert.
Hey guys, it's me, Mark Boucher Colbert, and I guess you're in the garden with NBC. You're in the garden with me, and that's the garden. And so here we are, yet again in the garden with NBC. I'm out here at the school garden, Franciscan Montessori Earth School, part of the gardens that I take care of out here. This is particularly a garden that's devoted to our middle school program. We run a farmer's market every week, which is awesome, and come out to the fields and harvest what's in season. So today I want to bring up a topic that maybe a lot of gardeners haven't thought about, but it's really kind of on the leading edge. It's, as so many leading edge things are, it's ancient, yet at the same time leading edge. And that's no-till gardening. The idea that we have a deeply ingrained rhythm in us as gardeners. It's like spring comes and we're just rearing to go. We just want to bust out the shovel, bust out the rototiller, and just start churning into that earth. There's definitely a satisfaction there. There's a pleasure there to be had. And yet, the more and more we learn about soil science, the more and more we learn about natural systems, the more and more we learn about just how plants grow and their partners, the partnerships that are developed in nature between plants and soil microorganisms. We learn that this may not be a great idea. Disturbing the soil, it may not be the best way to go about things. It's certainly creating more work for us as gardeners in one way. And so, why work against nature? Why not work with nature? That's the whole point of gardening, right? We're trying to ally ourselves with nature and natural systems to the degree we can and benefit from the intense and immense wisdom that's already out there. The stuff's come over billions of years. We don't have to reinvent it. And it's often better if we just set things up and step out of the way and just let it do its thing. So as gardeners, we can do that. No-till gardening has a lot of proponents. I'm going to recommend this book to you, Grow Your Soil by Diane Meisler. It's based on a lot of the pioneering research of Dr. Elaine Ingham, who's a soil microbiologist here in Oregon. And she's revealed just how complicated these networks are, how extraordinary they are. And learning more about that shifts our perspective on gardening. So rototilling, shoveling, anything that really disturbs the layers of the soil, anything that really is turning the soil topsy-turvy, is going to be breaking up some of these delicate communities. And these organisms, these communities of organisms in the soil, are basically serving us and will make gardening so much easier and so much more productive if we allow them to serve us and not destroy them in the process. Tilling has some other deleterious, other negative effects also. When we till, especially with a rototiller, the tines, the blades can only get so far down. And often what forms just below the reach of the blades is an actual zone of compaction called the hard pan. So we may be working at cross purposes, even though we see that loose, fluffy soil that we love to see and run our fingers through at the top, just below where the blades can reach. And of course, tillers can only go so deep, right? I mean, you're not tilling 10 feet down into the earth. You're tilling some number of inches down into the earth. Right below that can form a zone of compaction where basically the weight of the tiller sits and can't stir that part up, and can form a hard pan, which then is very difficult for roots to penetrate through. So there's a lot of reasons to go no-till, both for the sake of the microbial communities and for the actual mechanics of plant growth and the spread of roots through soil. So let's think about what no-till would look like. I think for a lot of gardeners, it's hard to imagine, how do I get that nice fluffy bed that I'm going to level out with a rake and have a beautiful planting surface to sprinkle in my carrots, my whatever it is, my small seeded crops maybe. How am I going to fight weeds if I'm not tilling? How does this work? Well, there's a lot of strategies. Again, I recommend this book to you. Some of our traditional gardening strategies like cover cropping are definitely in there. They form a part of the no-till strategy. I'm going to show you two interesting things that I use in my own gardening practice, and that's covering the earth, especially over the winter, with some kind of impermeable material. And I'll recommend a few in a minute when we go out to the field and look at that. And then just peeling that back and planting immediately into that beautiful brown soil where all the weeds, whatever was there in the fall, has now died and been digested by the soil microbes and macroorganisms too. The beetles, the various pill bugs and sow bugs, whatever's in the soil has eaten all that stuff that's been deprived of light basically all winter. So that's one strategy: cover, let sit for a while, and remove. And then another powerful strategy that I love is flaming. And flaming, as I'll say in a minute, is inherently dangerous. There's a lot of cautions you need to have in place, but it's a great strategy for basically lightly cooking whatever weeds start to emerge from the soil, thereby giving you a very clean surface and not bringing up additional weed seeds. Did I mention that when you till? By stirring the earth, you're stirring up this gigantic bank of weed seeds from every weed that's ever grown and spread its seed there. Many weed seeds can last for decades. Some I think up to 80 years. So there's basically, in every garden, there's a giant amount of weed seeds, and they get a light signal when they get close to the surface that tells them, now you little teeny little seed, you are close enough to the surface to actually have a shot. So let's get growing. So they get the same message that we're trying to give in this gardening program, except they're running counter to our desires, obviously. They're totally and truly faithful to their own natures, though. So they feel the sun, they're like, let's get growing, and boom, they're up and competing with your crops. So the less we till, the more we keep that soil surface undisturbed, such as with techniques like flaming and covering, basically some no-till techniques, the more success we're going to have, the less competitors we're going to have, the more bacteria, the more fungi we're going to have working on our team. So let's go out in the field and have a look, shall we? All right, so here I am in part of our garden, and I've got a piece of fabric down here. Again, I want to mention that you can use anything that will block light, but if you use just straight off the shelf black plastic from a hardware store. That is not treated for ultraviolet rays and will blast into a million smithereens probably by the end of the season. You'll never clean it up, and you're just adding to the plastic burden of the planet. I much prefer, like I said, this is a water quality liner for a tank. It's very durable. It's even got like some threads sewn in. There's some kind of fabric that is coated on both sides. I also really like the EPDM or pond liner. That stuff is a rubber material. It will take full sun for 20 years, and then it can be fully recycled. So those are fabrics that or surface or materials that I recommend to you. Stay away if you can from the straight off the shelf plastic stuff, the Visqueen at a hardware or a big box store. So when I pull this back, look at what we got. We got beautiful brown earth. Now you can see the winter growth right next to it, the grasses and such. So this to me is ready to till. Now I do see a few small weeds coming up here. A couple of things have been germinating with this warmer area that's been provided by the material. So my next step is going to be to take a flamer, and I'm just going to go get that flamer, and I'm going to show you how that works in a second here too. Okay guys, here we go. Here's the setup. I'm using a heavier duty flamer. I have a propane tank here that I've got mounted on a wheel truck just for convenience. I use walking up and down long rows. There's backpacks you can attach it to, or backpack frames. I've also just held it. There's smaller size versions that use just like a Coleman butane or propane stove tank. So there's lots of different sizes. A flamer is inherently dangerous, so it's up to you to be kind of using your wits, making sure you're not burning things, making sure you're not burning yourself. I tend to do most of my flaming in the spring when the soil is wet. In the summer, it's a definite fire hazard. And I generally only flame after I've irrigated and let things dry out just a little bit. I am not flaming beds with dry material when they are completely dry, because I know this stuff is going to catch on fire. So that's just a caveat. You have to be careful with this, especially in our age of increased fires. I live in the West in Oregon, and we have fires every summer, and it's with a drying climate, it's becoming more and more important that we really think this through and be cautious. So like I said, again, I'm doing most of my flaming when the weeds are emerging in the spring. I'll also do it in the summer, but I'm always making sure I'm irrigating, and I always want to have some measure of you can't compete with the motorcycles, even with a flamer. I always want to make sure I have some measure of protection ready to go, some water already, a hose that's live in case I need to put something out. That's just a common sense thing. All right, I'm going to open up my tank. I've got a control valve here. In a second, there's going to be, oh no, I got a bad light here, so I got to knock it around. There's a big flame that's going to come flying out of here in a second. There we go. four times the charm. And basically what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to point it down to the soil, and I'm going to sweep over the soil. I just turned it off. Basically a lot of steam's going to come up. Any green plants that have just sprouted will basically get cooked and wilt and just fall over. You don't have to flame them anymore. That's enough. So you're basically making just quick passes over the surface of the soil, and everything gets knocked down. The next day it'll be dead. You won't see it there. If plants are a little more established, you may have to spend a little more time to get them bright green and get them to that wilt point. But essentially, this is going to be a powerful tool for you. Again, a dangerous tool, one you need to be cautious with, but it's going to be a powerful tool if you want to go in that direction of no-till. because it allows you to eliminate weeds on the surface without making any disruption in the soil underneath there and not bringing any more weed seeds to the top. So I'm going to wish you luck in your no-till ventures. I've found it helpful and beneficial in my garden, and I'm trying to do as little as possible. I'm using techniques like covering. Of course, I'm using standard things like cover cropping, and I'm using things like flaming to minimize the amount of disturbance that I need to do for the soil and maximize the benefit that the organisms that live there can do for me. So good gardening. We'll see you again in the garden with MBC.
All right, another great gardening lesson from our friend Mark Boucher Colbert. Be sure to go and follow him on Instagram at Urban Ag Solutions and check out all the other things that he's got growing on. And I did want to go over with all of you really quick here. Be sure to get into our chat box if you're here. Join the gardening conversation with everybody, and as well too, want to get your input on our question of the week. This last week, we asked you all, what is your favorite garden book and why? So be sure to get into the comment section there. Let us know what your favorite garden book is and why you really enjoy that book. And we'll kind of go over those a little bit later in the show, as well as any other questions you might have. So be sure to ask your questions of us and of our guests that we have coming up here, because now it's time to see who we're following this week on Instagram.
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
This week, we are following Laura Smith of My Serene Garden. Laura lives in Zone 6B in rural Michigan. Her father was an Italian immigrant who, along with her mom, taught her all about gardening as a young child. She grew her first garden when she was 22 and has stayed consistent with growing ever since. Many people have an effective and methodological way of gardening, but Laura would say hers is more wild and free. She started her Instagram page last year and has met some amazing gardeners on the way. She truly thinks our gardening community is something special and unique and is excited for what is to come in the future. So let's welcome Laura to our show.
Hi.
Hi, Laura. How are you doing? Welcome to
Good.
Let's
How
Get
are you?
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for joining with us today. It's great to have you here. And let's jump right in and talk a little bit about your garden story. Where did where did you first have your first gardening experience?
I would say it goes back to my childhood, just watching my parents garden, and we had 11 acres growing up. So
11
my dad
acres,
would,
huh?
yeah,
Nice.
he would till everything by hand. He had a shovel and he would just go out there every morning and do little by little. And before we knew it, we had this big garden that he could just, they could plant anything.
Right.
So he did that for my mom. And I just remember they'd be out there every morning, just, watering the plants. They grew so many tomatoes, peppers, eggplants.
All sorts of stuff. I mean, with that much space, you probably grow a lot of different things, huh? So that's a really great experience to have when you're young, is to be able to have parents who are growing garden and fresh food for you all. So that's great to have. All right. So again, you say that you didn't get started though with your first garden until you were 22?
Yeah. So my dad had passed away and I was taking care of my mom because she got sick as well. So I think for me, it was just a way to connect with my dad, like what he taught me growing up. So I started my own little garden where they used to have theirs. And I fell in love with it. I never wanted, ever since that experience, I was like, I just have to keep doing this.
Right. Yeah. It's probably one of those ways to kind of pass along that experience that you gained from when you were younger, right?
Right.
Yeah, and kind of keep their memory alive through what their passions were too when you were growing up. That's really awesome. So garden? You say you're gardening in the same space though? I mean,
Yeah, when I lived with them, I took their space and I just made it my own little garden. But eventually, I moved out, and
yeah,
ever since then, I've just wherever I've lived, I've had a little garden.
yeah,
So I just
that's
take their
awesome.
methods and just
Yeah,
I go with that, with what they've taught me.
yeah, that's excellent.
Mhm.
So, okay, so you're growing your garden,
Mhm.
and you probably had several seasons now. Are there any sort of favorite things that you have that you like to grow? Things that you're, that
Yeah,
are the, the
I'd say tomatoes.
yeah,
Definitely my favorites.
yeah,
It's a staple in every Italian food, every dish that we have. You have to have something with tomatoes,
that's right,
especially the
huh?
sauce, or even basil. The aroma of the basil when you start
Oh,
cooking
yes,
it,
I
it
love
just
basil.
fills the kitchen. Yeah, those are, and basil, it just grows so well.
Yeah,
You keep picking it, and it just keeps growing back. So it's just so nice to have throughout the summer.
yeah,
You don't have to
yeah,
go to the store and buy, the dried up basil. It's just fresh
yeah.
right in your garden.
Nothing like fresh things right out of your garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Tomatoes and peppers are usually one of those common ones that everybody really likes to grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Anything though that you found that is that you don't really like to grow? Anything that's
Um,
really kind of difficult or presents challenges for you?
I would say this is probably uncommon, but probably strawberries for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just cannot get them to produce a lot. I can get
Yeah.
them to grow and I can propagate them, but as far as getting the actual strawberry to grow, it just seems like I've always had issues.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're growing your strawberries, do
Mm,
you let the runners go?
yeah,
So you
and
let a lot of them go?
I put them in new little pots, and then I let
Yeah,
a new strawberry plant grow. But
yeah.
for some reason, they just don't seem to want to grow. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the suggestions I would have that I found out after growing strawberries for a while because I loved propagating them. I just
Mhm.
couldn't believe like these plants just produce all these new plants and they got these runners that run around everywhere. And
Right.
I found that I had the same issue. I had a ton of
Mhm.
plants. I had new plants. I had new strawberry patches all over my garden and everything. But the
Yeah.
one thing I didn't have was these really productive plants producing
Mhm.
the strawberries. So what I learned now that I have all of these plants. So I've got plenty of plants. So now I don't need any more. So I start cutting those runners. Start cutting those
Okay.
runners as they start showing up. And that way your plant starts producing fruit more so than trying to produce more plants.
Oh,
So
okay.
that might be a good suggestion for you is
Yeah.
to start taking the strategy of cutting those runners off
Mm. That's a
and
good
see how
idea.
those work for you. Maybe you'll get some good strawberry production this year.
Yeah, I'll have to try that.
Yeah, yeah, I love strawberries. Again, like I said, I've got
Too.
them all over my garden, all sorts of places. Anywhere I could find a little extra space, I was putting strawberries. And more so again, too, coming to the fact that I was producing all these new plants.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I got to find new places to put them and everything. But now anymore, I just start cutting those runners as they show up so I can get good production out of my plants. And that seems to be doing the trick for me.
Yeah, I'll definitely try that.
Right, excellent. And so any other types of things that you like growing in your garden that you
I really like growing corn too. I love just seeing how tall they can get and just
yeah,
the different varieties that you can grow. The ones that are so colorful. I love
yeah,
growing
yeah.
those.
Or the colorful ones
Yeah.
like the glass gem variety.
Yes. Those are beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, those are really cool. That
Mm.
was actually one of the first corns I actually tried. I don't have like a big amount of space,
Mm.
which is something you really need to get really good production off of your corn
Yeah.
because you want a bunch of plants all grouped together so that they can
Mhm.
pollinate each other and you can produce enough pollen for each of those cobs,
Mm.
and yeah, so glass gem was one of the first ones I tried, but I really, again, there's nothing that beats a nice sweet corn too, so
Yeah.
I love those as well.
My
And
kids love those.
Yes. And the same thing too. I think one of the cool things about corn is it's, just another type of grass in a way.
Mhm.
And the way it grows, I mean, just so fast. I mean,
Oh,
you
I
put
know.
you
Yeah.
put a little thing in, it pops up,
Mhm.
and next thing you know, it's 2 feet tall. Next thing you know, it's
Right.
4 or 5 feet tall.
It's
Such a
definitely
great
fun
growth.
to watch.
Yeah, yeah, I love corn too.
Mm.
I've got a bigger space this year, so we're gonna try growing a lot more corn and see if we can't get
Ooh.
better production. Because I got smaller spaces. I can get a small group of them together, but I
Mhm.
don't get very good production out of that again because
Oh.
because it's not enough. There's not enough in the group in order to get really good pollination. I mean, I'll
Mhm.
get some cobs, but then you'll have like, if you open it up, there'll be like patches without any corn kernels or anything
Yeah.
because it's not getting fully pollinated.
Mhm. I have
But
a problem with squirrels too sometimes. Like
oh,
I've noticed they do try to go after the corn.
oh, squirrels love corn. Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta watch out. You gotta watch out for those buggers. For sure. Absolutely. So I think we talked about in your bio there that you started your Instagram page last year. So what inspires you to take these garden experiences that you had and sharing them with everybody on Instagram?
So for me, I think it was just because I'm more of an introvert and I work from home. I'm
Yeah.
a stay-at-home mom. I don't really get to
Mhm.
go out that much. And gardening is just such a passion of mine. So I thought maybe I'll go on here and see if I can make friends this way. Just people
Yeah.
who share the same interests as me. And sure enough, once I made it, I have so many close friends, I would say, just from
Yeah.
going on there and messaging back and forth, sharing our gardening tips and what we're growing. I don't know. It's just so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. And I totally agree. I think that that was one of the things that took kind of my experience with gardening to another level was when I
Mm.
started sharing it because I was kind of similar to you in a sense. I was, I wouldn't say necessarily an introvert, but I spent a lot of time in my garden spaces, just myself,
Yeah.
trying to do things, experiment with things, growing different types of varieties of all sorts of stuff. And I also had this project, which actually really kind of pushed and inspired everything. I had pepper plants growing on a carport rooftop,
Oh.
and and in the neighborhood I lived in, everybody noticed these plants growing up on this rooftop,
Mm.
and they were, so I'd get a lot of people who would say, you know what, you really need to share that. You need to share that stuff with everybody. And
Yeah.
that's what kind of inspired me. Like, I do watch a lot of YouTube channels. I do, see a lot of gardening on the other social media. Maybe I should, start one myself.
Mm.
And then similar to you, that's when things really just opened up because I discovered the gardening community.
Right.
That
And it's everywhere too. It's not just here in the US. It seems like every country in Europe, there's people who are just so
yeah,
interested in it and they have their pages. Canada. I've made so
yeah,
many friends, internationally. It's just so I don't know,
yes.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that is a big thing. In fact, I'll just kind of forward promo our next week's show too, because of exactly what you're talking about.
Mm.
Is we're having a show next week that's all going to be all guests from the United Kingdom.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I mean, gardening is a big international thing, and
Mhm.
that's one of the cool things that social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook groups, and all that sort of stuff allows us is to connect with these people from all over the world who share
Right.
that same sort of passion for gardening as we do.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Um, so let's see. I think we have a couple of questions from our audience for you, Laura. Let's check out what we
Okay.
got here. It's like Jordan Lee asks, can you share some of your favorite family dishes, recipes that incorporates ingredients from your garden? Got any favorite things that you like to make out of your fresh veggies from your garden?
I would definitely say just sauce.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that popped in my head. Every Sunday, and I don't know if it's common in Europe, but here with Italian families, it's every Sunday we have to make a sauce.
Right?
So I would just say that.
Yeah. Sauces are important, right?
Yeah.
They pretty much go with everything, right?
Right. Every Sunday, I just remember my mom being in the kitchen. She would, especially in the summertime, she would have the fresh tomatoes out and the basil.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll tell you what, that reminds me of one of my very first jobs I had when I was a teenager. I worked for this Italian family. And I mean, they were first generation Italians from
Mm.
Amalfi, Italy, and
Oh.
they had this really wonderful restaurant locally where I was living called Gambardella's. And and they were just so awesome. The whole family, they really treated me like family. It was just one of these great experiences I had when I was young. But that was one of the things I remember. That was my job and for a restaurant, you can't just do it on Sundays. It had to be every
Right.
single day. Every single day. My job was to get up early, show up at the restaurant, and start this big, huge pot of sauce
Wow.
every day. Just gallons and gallons of red sauce.
You probably have
Yeah,
a really
but
good recipe now.
oh yeah. That's just good stuff. I mean, really
Yeah.
great. I really miss those people too. You know,
Mm.
it's been years since I've seen them, but one of those great experiences in my life,
Oh,
was
I bet.
yeah. Oh, they had an awesome family. Treated us like family. I remember when I had my daughter too. My baby daughter was born, and they literally brought their family in from all over the place just to celebrate
Oh.
my daughter being born.
Mm.
And that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
family's definitely most important to Italians. It's
that's
just
right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, anything that with your Instagram or anything, you've probably shared quite a bit of things. Is there anything you're looking forward to doing, or anything you're planning this year at all? Yeah.
I would definitely say just we're trying to expand my garden. So
Okay.
the fence that was up last year, we're going to take it down and build a new one. And I think we want to expand it out and make a few more beds. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a little bit of a project, but it's going to be fun. I
Oh
just
yeah.
really want to focus on the tomatoes, though, just because we use so much of them and
Yeah.
the prices have gone up. So I want to try to get as many as possible in.
Do you have any favorite tomatoes that you like growing?
I love beefsteak tomatoes.
Beefsteaks. Yeah.
Yeah, it just has so much flavor to them.
Yeah.
Romas are good.
Yeah. Those are really Romas are pretty big centerpiece to a good sauce, right?
Yeah.
You try
Even
like
the
San
cherry tomatoes.
Marzanos? Have you
Oh,
tried San
yes, those are
Marzanos?
good.
Those are
Yeah.
good as well too.
Mhm.
All right, let's see. We got another question for you here. Let's check that out. We got Jay Dixon asking, "What single thing makes you most enthusiastic about gardening?" What
Um,
one thing makes you most enthusiastic about gardening?
I think just being outside in nature and just seeing it grow, like that's something that you did. You planted everything and you're just watching it grow and you're going to use that for your food, for your family. It's just, I don't know,
Yeah,
it's exciting. Every year it never gets boring.
it never gets boring, does it?
No,
I think it almost actually gets more exciting every year. I
it
find myself
does.
even more excited every single year, every season
Yeah.
to
You find something new to grow and you want to watch that grow.
or even if something didn't work out last year, it's like, oh, I'm going to make it happen
Yeah.
this year. Yes, absolutely. Gardening is fun and exciting. Let's see. We got another question there for Laura.
Mhm.
Jordan Lee asks, what are some ways you pass on your green thumb and love of gardening to your family members? Do you get your kids out in the garden with you?
Oh yeah. I just want to say hi, Jordan. He's my friend from Instagram.
Oh, awesome. Excellent. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
my kids love gardening. They love to be out there with me anytime they seem, even now I've been growing seedlings and my youngest has been wanting to plant the seeds with me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So even in the summertime, they love to be out there. They love to water the garden. They try to get in as much as possible. So that's nice to see them, love it as much as I do.
That's great.
Mm.
Yeah, so awesome, to get the kids involved with
Yeah,
everything when it
yeah.
comes to gardening. I mean, I have a few different growing experiences when I was younger, but that was something I kind of really missed out on, was that
Mhm.
real in-depth experience with, family and people, in the garden and everything. But,
Mhm.
I love to be able to pass that on with everybody else too now. But there isn't
Oh, yeah.
anything more exciting than seeing kids really enjoy fresh food and the
Oh,
whole
definitely.
experience of growing things. It's like you said, that it's a fascinating thing, to watch
Mhm.
something grow from a seed all the way to this full-size plant producing something that you can eat, right?
Right. And I think
Yep.
it helps them eat healthier too, because I feel like they think it's something that they grew too. They helped with it. And if you
Hmm.
tell them, go out and pick something, I don't know, it seems like they'll choose that over junk food anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah. One
Mm.
of my favorite quotes from a gardener, uh, Ron Finley, said, "If you teach a kid to grow a tomato, they'll eat a tomato." And I think,
Yeah.
again, too, that was one of those things that I was lacking when I was younger and I was a
Mhm.
kid, in not having someone, showing me, that sort of gardening experience. I was a picky kid when it came to vegetables.
Oh.
I didn't really get into them or enjoy vegetables and these things that we grow in our garden until I became an adult.
Right.
So I think it's, that becomes one of those things that makes gardening with your children even more important, is to be able to teach them that appreciation for fresh food.
Definitely. I think we need it now more than ever with, everything that they sell at the grocery stores. It's so much of it
Hmm.
is processed, and, there's just this little
Yeah.
section for fresh fruits and vegetables. So I think
Hmm.
it's really important that we teach our kids how to garden.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's,
Mhm.
and that was probably one of the biggest eye-opening experiences for me as I got older and started discovering, these new and different types of food that you could grow and could garden, was the fact that, they only had certain things at the store that I was used to.
Yeah.
and Learning that there's just a wider variety of things, and not only that, the flavor and the taste of things were completely different from what I was used to.
Yeah.
So, growing things and having the opportunity to grow many different varieties is such a big thing when it comes to gardening, because of that, that point in general, is that you
Yeah.
won't believe the flavors that you'll experience by growing your own food.
I agree.
Yeah, that's awesome. Excellent. Well, um, so again, I want to thank you for joining with us here on Earth Day, Laura. It's a really great conversation and talking about your gardening and your experience and everything. And I really want to encourage everybody who's watching our show right now to join Laura in her garden at My Serene Garden on Instagram. Thanks again for joining us here on Earth Day,
Thank you
Laura.
for having me. It
Such
was
so
fun.
So awesome. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Laura, for joining with us there today. Um, and I think right now we'll take a little break and we'll be back here in just a moment with our question of the week.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and author, Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. Awesome. Excellent. So, again, I want to thank Laura for joining with us there from My Serene Garden. And let's talk a little bit about our question of the week that we mentioned to you just a little bit ago. The question of the week this week is, what is your favorite garden book and why? So let us know what your favorite garden book is and why there in the comment section. And I'll just go over a few of my current favorite garden books that I have right now that I've been kind of reading and enjoying, starting with my actually probably my favorite that I've gotten to read actually this last winter. I read this book called Garden Variety by Christy Wilhelmi. And this is actually a fiction gardening book that kind of centers around a community garden in Los Angeles. And it's got all these great characters and all of these really cool kind of like garden tips and lessons and all those sort of things that are kind of built into this kind of overall story that's being told about this community garden. And the community garden has it's got the all the cool characters. It's got an antagonist, it's got a hero, it's got this great plot about them trying to save the community garden from being closed down and all of that. And it's just a really great read. And so it's a little bit different than say your normal garden book that's teaching different types of lessons and tips and tricks and all that sort of stuff. This one kind of incorporates those into an overall fiction story, which is really great. So I encourage you to check out Christy Wilhelmi's Garden Variety. And I think I've got a link down below in the description too of this video. It's where you can find a copy of that for yourself, as well as in Mark's garden, in the garden segment, he mentioned the book. Oh, what was that book? Yeah, Grow Your Soil. Yes, so you mentioned the book Grow Your Soil. I think I have a link down below in the description as well for that book too, so you can check out that book on growing your soil. I also been checking out and reading this book called 20 Reasons Not to Garden and Why I Ignore Them All. This is by Luke Rugenberg, and it's kind of a cool little book on all sorts of different little things that just about the whole overall gardening experience. And those things that we find that happen in the garden that we're experiencing, and kind of maybe reasons some people use to not garden, but we find they are actually really good reasons for us to actually garden and all of that too. And again too, as you can see, I really enjoy house plants and growing plants indoors as well too. So this is a book I really like as well. This is by Summer Rain Oaks, and it's called How to Make a Plant Love You. So this is a really great book too, and I really recommend that. And then of course, this last week we had with us Karen Hug, the author of Leave Your Troubles Behind. Now I really enjoy this book and really highly recommend this book, is because one of the things about life in general is that there are tons of stresses, whether you work a job or whether you're taking care of kids, or the world around you. Just different things become really stressful and can really kind of weigh down on us and all of that. So it's important to be able to find strategies to kind of de-stress ourselves. And there are so many opportunities to do that in the in gardening and doing all that sort of stuff as well too. So yeah, really highly recommend that, because she gives a lot of activities and advice on all these different things that we can do to de-stress and all of that as well too. So we also have, I believe, a couple of books from our chat room. Let's see here. Jay Dixon says his favorite garden book is Square Foot Gardening. The original was quite influential for me. Oh, yes, absolutely. I wish I could remember the author of that book too, but really great book, Square Foot Gardening, especially for those of you who are gardening in small spaces. If you have small spaces, being able to utilize the square foot method is really great because it gives you just really that look into what you can possibly do with that space. When it comes to individual different varieties of vegetables and fruits and things like that, that kind of goes over how many you can put into a space, how you can kind of move those things around in order to rotate your crops and do all that sort of stuff. But it's just really great method for growing for small space gardeners. All right, and we've got Jordan Lee saying any of Charles Dowding's no dig books are great. Currently reading Monty Don's My Garden World. Yes. Okay. I've heard of Monty Don's books, and I'm really interested in checking out some of those as well too, as Charles Dowding does a lot of really great things when it comes to different garden methods and all that sort of stuff too. So those are some really great books to check out as well too. And one of the things that we do with our question of the week is we ask that question on our Facebook group, the Let's Get Growing group. And we had a couple of suggestions this week from Lisa Gibson, said that Noah's Garden by Sarah Stein. Wonderful story, wonderful read. Every natural gardener should read it. All right. And Michelle Hathrow, our producer, suggests The Seed Detective by Adam Alexander. Yeah, I got that one on order. I'm going to be checking that one out soon too, as well too. It looks like a really great book, a really good read. And then we had from Matt McGee of Citrus Container Gardening. Not sure if I have one, but tempted to write one about growing citrus in containers himself. So yeah, maybe we'll look forward to seeing Matt's book here in the future as well too. Might have to have him on to talk about it when it comes time for that as well. All right, so that pretty much goes over our question of the week for this last week, and let's check out our question of the week for this next week. What do you like most about organic gardening? And that emphasizes organic gardening. What do you like most about organic gardening? And be sure to answer that question for us in our Facebook group, as I mentioned, the Let's Get Growing Gardening group. And you can find that on Facebook or check out the link right down below in the description. You can come join along with us in our Facebook group and contribute all sorts of things besides answering our question. You can share with us pictures of your garden, tell us all about the different things that you're growing in your garden, and be able to share that with all of our other gardeners in our gardening community. And answer some questions, ask some questions, then it's a really great place to be able to share your gardening experience with fellow gardeners in our gardening community. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. Them and all right, excellent. So on this part of the show, we are going to go over our garden story. And again, I want to mention to everybody too, again, about our Facebook group. You can go check out the Let's Get Growing group and be able to contribute our garden stories with us, as well as at our website at letsgetgrowing.live. And what you do is just go up to that Get Involved tab at the top of the page, and there you can contribute your garden stories with us, and maybe we'll share your garden story coming up in one of our future episodes of Let's Get Growing. So let's check out this week's garden story. All right, this week's garden story comes from Darren Roberts. Now, Darren learned to love gardening while visiting his grandparents when he was young. He loved to help his grandmother in her greenhouse and getting dirty planting the many plants that she would let him plant in her garden beds. Grandmother loved to garden and grew so many different fruits and vegetables in her garden. His grandfather loved to supervise the plantings and help with the building of things. His favorite plants in his grandparents' garden were the cherry tomatoes and sugar peas that he got to eat right out of the garden. He also really enjoyed harvesting the buckets of blueberries from their giant blueberry bushes, or at least they were giant to him when he was young. Darren didn't grow his own garden until many years later. He started gardening after his grandparents passed away in his late 20s in order to keep those memories from when he was a kid alive. Along the way, he developed a real passion of his own and teaches his own children to love the process of growing your own. He believes that teaching the younger generation to grow a garden is one of the most important things we can do. He really enjoys seeing his kids snacking on the tomatoes and peas as he did when he was their age. He grows as many varieties of his favorite things in his garden each year as he can, and really loves to grow all sorts of squash and melons, as well as cucumbers. His favorite being the lemon cucumber. All right. That's one of my favorites too. I love the lemon cucumber. I just got a bunch of them seeded out. And, that story, what a fitting story to kind of go along with our last guest as well, too. Laura Smith from My Serene Garden was basically telling us almost the same thing, about her parents and her experience in growing in the garden and being able to, reconnect with that experience when she got older, and then, to kind of carry on those sort of memories that she had from when she was younger, and also be able to pass those things on to her children. So let's see here. We are in a little bit of a situation here on Let's Get Growing. Our guest is actually currently in a talk with folks at a garden show, our featured guest. So hopefully he'll be ready here to join with us in a second, and we can check in with what he's got going on there. He does several different appearances and talks around the Southern California area, different home and garden shows and different things as well too, to help people learn about gardening. He's a radio and television host. He has his own radio show where he answers people's gardening questions all the time, as well as I believe it's a PBS television series of the same name as his radio show, Things Green. And Nick is a really fun character. We got to meet Nick in one of my very first trips down to Southern California in filming different feature videos for the Urban Gardener channel. And I remember I called him up because I just had this idea of I listened to a couple of different radio gardeners, one of my favorite being Cisco Morris from up in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area. And I mean, I listened to him for years. So I wanted to kind of do, if I was going to do interview and feature videos for the Urban Gardener channel, I wanted to meet up with those people who are doing like radio and television and helping teach gardeners, those sort of things through those mediums. And Nick was one of those guys that I had discovered probably a couple of years before, who, you know, through social media and different gardening groups and things, and found, you know, found what he was doing to be really interesting. And so I called him up for my first trip down to Los Angeles. And, and again, I hadn't talked to very many people and thought of, it was just kind of wondering how people would respond to me as a small YouTube gardening channel to kind of, do features on them and do interviews. And Nick was totally enthusiastic about doing it and said, yes, definitely. And when I got there to go do the interview, he actually surprised, in fact, he's done this twice to me now. But the first time he actually surprised me by saying, hey, we're going to be starting our radio show and started recording our radio show here in just a minute. So let's get you on my radio show and we'll talk about, things. And we ended up doing that. And luckily we also had another person that I was going to interview join up with us as well too. So me and Kay Cottrell from the Late Bloomer channel got onto his radio show and had a real fun time talking all sorts of things about gardening and everything like that. And then the next time I came to visit him, which was probably a couple of years later, Nick surprised me again by saying, oh, he's got his whole film crew ready. He has a really cool kind of studio, kind of a little television studio there in Los Angeles. And when I showed up to do my interview, he's like, well, you know what? First, similar like he did with the radio show, he's like, I'm going to have you on my television show. We're going to film a spot that'll be airing, in a few months. And let's go ahead and do that. So I was like, oh, really? Okay. Now I'm going to be on your television show. So he's full of surprises, as well as today as well too, because he's currently in the middle of a garden talk that he's doing here at a garden show down there too. So we're trying to connect with him right now in order to get him onto the show. So hopefully that'll happen here pretty soon. Let's see if we can't get Nick on with us.
Do you want me to add him?
I think they're trying to figure things out right now. Okay, let's do it.
So where do you live, Nick?
Hey, check that out. We got a beard convention.
Yeah.
Hey, hold on, dude. We can't hear you.
Oh, hopefully.
Hold on. We're doing this right here is a buddy of mine.
This is the fun of doing a live
is
show right here. Where
he's the only guy that I know that grows plants in alleyways in the cracks.
In the cracks. Oh, yeah. Well, nutgrass grows everywhere. That's the edge.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
You can't hear me. Shake your head, yes.
I can hear you.
Well, you could hear me. I can't hear you.
Oh, no.
So let's do this. We missed out, man. We had an audience here and everything.
Oh,
yeah. This is my band.
Jimmy Maxine. I'm a
right.
wood guy. Carpenters. I is a carpenter.
Hold on. So you could hear me, but I can't hear you. I was hearing you earlier. How was I here? I was hearing you. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, you turned it down. Yeah, there you go.
All right, say something, Enoch.
All right, man. Can you hear me?
No.
I can't.
Output, input.
Something's wrong.
Well, he knows some good stuff too, huh?
Hey, for the record, I look pretty good on your show.
Yeah, this is the fun of doing a live
I think what we're gonna have to do, this isn't gonna work, man. I really thought it was gonna work. I was hearing you really good earlier. You had that gal on, but I don't know how well. Can you hear me loud enough?
Oh yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah.
I can hear you great. Yeah.
You see, now I can't hear you at all. Let's do
All
this.
right.
See, that's not me.
I knew we'd end up finding
down.
something like this eventually
that
happening with our
settings.
show. Being a live show,
I
you never
heard
know
you
what's going to
earlier.
happen.
We had you
so-
on, In fact, we were piping you through, and I was lecturing at the same time, and the audience told me to turn you off because they couldn't hear me.
All right.
Audio.
Look at this. I'm
Let's
messing
see.
up the show.
I don't know. Maybe we could do something where we could have Asia ask the question to him
What's
through
this?
the live
What's
chat.
this?
I don't know if he can see the
Let
live
me do
chat
this.
or
Let me
not.
unplug this. Okay, can you say something, young man?
Are you there? Can you hear me yet?
Oh, I can hear you a little bit. There you go, a little bit.
You can hear me a little bit? I'll
I
try
can
to.
barely hear you. It's through my
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe.
Can we ask questions through chat? Yeah, you can do that.
All right. We'll kind of
Ask
work it
questions
that
through
way.
chat.
If you can hear me a little bit, maybe we can work it. If you can hear me just a little bit, maybe we can work it that way, just a little bit there too. Again,
We'll try
this
it.
is the fun of doing a live show as we're doing here on Let's Get Growing. So
Wait a minute. Wait, let me do this. I do have a lav mic here. Keep on talking away, dude.
All right, definitely. So let's see if we can't get this working here. All right.
I don't know where the speaker is on this. Say something again, would you?
I'm here.
You're here. Say it again.
I'm here. You here? Can you
The
hear me?
speaker's actually underneath the.
Can you hear me?
All right, go for it.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit's coming through here.
A little bit's coming through.
But if you turn it up anymore,
Jeez, I told you this was going to be a problem.
All right. Well, you know what? Like you said, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an adventure. So what we'll do is I'll ask you some questions, and then Asia will pump that into our question box there, and then you just go on and tell us all about it. All right?
Yeah, I can't hear a word he's saying.
So let's start with.
Wait a minute. Hold on here. Just to let. Do I have? Got one last thing here. One last thing.
All right.
I thought I had headphones.
I just can see you're probably bigger for headphones.
Yeah. You're a musician. Give me your headphones. All right, go ahead, shoot. Let me hear if I can hear what you got to say.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we'll try. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
I could hear you better.
You can hear me better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's enough to where we can.
If I pull your radio plug out of there, it might just come through there.
It is coming through here.
If I pull that out, though, then you can turn the volume up.
No. It is coming through here.
But I mean,
I unplugged it. I unplugged it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Enoch.
All right. We'll try to do this the best we can. Yeah, stick your ear to it there, and we'll figure it. We'll get this figured out. You know, I'll tell you what, Nick. Everything is always fun and adventurous whenever I've got you around. So.
All right, go ahead. I can kind of hear you.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's just have you go on and tell us a little bit about your garden story. What's your history with gardening?
Okay. Can you catch me a chair?
Need a chair?
I need a chair. Let me get a chair here.
Okay.
Hey, for the record, I treated you a whole lot better on my show than I'm treating you on yours. Golly.
Uh-oh.
All right, here's the story. I've been doing. I'm what you call a garden expert or horticulturalist. I have a degree in ornamental horticulture. I used to be a landscape contractor. I held the license in what they call a qualified applicator in the state of California, which allowed me to handle toxic materials should I wish. And I do. I believe in IPM
Well, I'll let you go.
All right, thanks, Simon. We'll talk to you later. I believe in IPM, which is Integrated Pest Management, not to be confused with PMS, which means pity my spouse. And what we end up doing is, yes, I went there.
Yes, you did.
And for the record, I've been married for 41 years. I have 3 kids and 5 grandkids. Anyway, the dealio is that I have a passion for landscaping. I have a passion for gardening. I just love it to no end. The people are just uber awesome. You can never disseminate enough information to the masses. People really want to learn. We try not to use technical jargon to lose people, because we want them to enjoy the experience. At one time when I was a landscape contractor, I had 60 people on my payroll, and we did maintenance and installations all the way from Mrs. Jones's small house plant. We had city and county contracts. At one time, I was the largest weed abatement contractor in the United States. I had 26 tractors that were roaming around 24 hours a day. So I've had a pretty eclectic career in the world of landscaping. I won't even go into my construction background, but it's pretty cool. And if I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now, I'd be hanging with you on what's on your back wall over there. I would have been a professional musician because or at least a studio musician, and because I play saxophone, clarinet, and flute.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we've talked about that before, and as I was mentioning with the audience about being part of your radio and television show. So where along the way of your gardening did you start your kind of your adventure with radio and eventually television?
Yeah, well, I got into the radio totally by mistake.
By mistake.
I basically filled in for a guy once. It's a long story to get to it, but as you know, I had laryngitis, and I got to be careful. My voice is really messing me up right now. But yeah, what happened was that I filled in for somebody on a radio show. The people in the management calls me in a couple of weeks later. I thought I killed somebody's plants, and they in turn said I generated more mail in that one show than the other guy did being on the air in 2 years. So they asked me to do the show. I didn't know at the time, especially in radio. Radio is pretty cutthroat. It's not like today where you could open up a channel and all of a sudden you're in business like this. But what happened was that, I'll be with you in a minute. I'll be starting up in about 15 minutes. But yeah, about 10, 15 minutes. And I got people with my audience coming in. And basically is what it was is that they asked me if I would do the show. I did the show. They came back. They said they wanted to hire me. I happen to have known the guy who did the other show before, and I just came to him and I said, "Look, they want to give me your job. I got to tell you, I want to do it. But if you don't want me to do it, I won't." He gave me his blessing to do it. I have a clear conscience. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. He actually sued the radio station, and he got $25,000 in rear payment, and he moved to Australia, and I haven't heard from him since.
Oh my.
Yeah. So then throughout my career, I've done just television here and there, and then we'll just say that I filled in for I had one of my clients ask me to do a little thing on the local news. And they said, okay. I said, okay. I did it. The news station absolutely loved it. And they said, can you do more of that? And yeah, I started doing more of that. And so right now, I have about 500 segments that I have done for CBS KCAL News here in Los Angeles. And I don't believe one of them has ever been a repeat. And then at the same time, our local PBS station calls me up and said, can you do a TV show? And I said, well, yeah, it's just like doing a whole bunch of little TV segments that I do for CBS. I could do it over here. So I put them all together, and next thing you know, I'm doing what I'm doing. So I reach out to a pretty big audience with my radio show. They tell me, and I can't confirm these numbers, but it's always been pretty consistent. They say I have an audience of around 25 to 30 million listeners, and on TV, it's about, at least my TV show is about 17 million there. I don't believe the numbers. I think it's a whole lot less than that, but at least that's where my reach is at. I know that much for a fact.
Right. Yeah, that's great too. And I was sharing with everybody about my experience with you and being able to be on your radio show as you surprised me with these appearances, that and your television show that we did the about a year or two ago. And could you just tell us a little bit more about your television show? What are the sort of the things that you cover and the sort of the things that you do on that show?
Sure. The TV show is a very eclectic program where I talk about, it's almost kind of like the radio show. I talk about whatever I feel like talking about. I'll give you an example. This morning's show. Well, first off, I record my TV show upwards of 3 to 6 months in advance. We do 26 shows a year, and then they all repeat. And so I do 13 for spring and summer, and then I do 13 for fall and winter. The show is, today's show, for instance, was a local urban farm, and they had 8 acres, and we did a little farm to table kind of thing. Now, coming from Los Angeles to have 8 acres of anything is almost impossible. So that was one of the reasons why we had them on. So we do things like that. We'll film. You've seen my studio before. So we'll film little segments to complete shows in my studio, whether it's having guests or just me doing some kind of garden tip. The other thing that we can do is I do go out and about. In fact, I'm headed out to Wisconsin tomorrow in a couple of days. I'm going to be filming in Wisconsin. And we've got some manufacturers that we're going to be highlighting on the show. I've also done things like I've gone to the Long Beach Airport here in Southern California. You know, one of the biggest carbon foot suckers of life you could ever imagine. And we made them look like they were the absolute green goddesses of green carbon footprints. Well, the reason why we did that is because they have taken steps to offset their carbon footprints. So I try to look for those little nuggets to see what people are actually doing and highlighting that instead of bashing people on the head that this is wrong, that's wrong. So yeah, a lot of different things. So I've sometimes it's just a man about town. I've done things where I've gone to about 3 hours north of here. Once a year they have what they call the Avocado Festival. So we'll go to the Avocado Festival and just talk to all the different vendors and learn everything you can about avocados. And then I've done things to where I've gone to dairies, and we look and we see how they have processed the the poo into usable compost. So yeah, it's there's, if you can think about it, we really try to we try to talk about a wide variety of things, and we try to keep it sustainable as possible. We try to talk about environmental issues. We used to have here in Southern California have a drought. So it's really interesting. So I've talked about I know more about the drought than probably most people do, for good cause, because people need to know that information. Now it's really interesting. I have to teach people on how to strategically use that water now. Now that we have so much of it, let's not waste it. So that'll be a theme coming up within the next 3 to 4 years as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lots of really interesting things. And one of the things I think I really enjoy about your show, and kind of similar as we could think with this whole situation today, is that you really kind of have fun with things, and you really really kind of keep things entertaining when you're doing all this stuff. And so real quick, maybe we can finish up with just have you kind of explain or talk with everybody about what are those things that you really enjoy about gardening? What are those things, are there some favorite things you like to garden? What are there experiences, different things like that you really enjoy about gardening yourself?
I'm talking to a guy on the radio right now.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
I
got people here. Okay. Be with you guys in a minute. I'm doing a podcast with somebody. Yeah. Anyway, anytime a person can get their hands dirty, I mean, I'll give you an example. First off, when you follow me online, you'll see that I do have stuff that I put on my TV show, and then I have stuff that I don't put on my TV show. So this morning, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning, knowing that I had to come here. Got up, got dressed, and I went on my property. I'm pretty fortunate. I have a 1/4 acre to work with, raised plants in ground. I've got a greenhouse, all kinds of stuff like that. And one of the things that that I did is that I planted 2 huge trays of wildflowers. They're going to be put into my yard. Now, normally you would just sprinkle the seeds out. I'm not going to do that. I have a plan up here, and I like to plant my seed in my greenhouse, and then I like to take the plant once it's grown, and then plant a healthy plant, because even though you're planting in your greenhouse doesn't mean everything is going to grow. So this way I could see it, I could nurture it, I could take care of it. And let me tell you something, there's nothing more sexier than watching a seed pop through the soil, and it just starts pushing up that dirt, and then there's a big clod of dirt on those cotyledon leaves, and it's struggling to get up, and it's so dainty, and it's so just soft and yet strong at the same time. And then it flops that big clod of dirt over, and then before you know it, you blink your eyes and you've got this plant, and this plant turns into a flower, turns into a fruit. You get a squash seed this big, and then you can get a squash as big as a VW. How cool is that?
That is cool.
That's what I enjoy about that. Well, listen, I got people I got to go over here. I still didn't get a chance to rest my voice. I want to thank you very much for putting up with my shenanigans over here. And if it ever happens again, so I can come under a more controlled situation, maybe from my studio, and then maybe we can chat.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely try that again too. But again, fun adventure anyways with you, Nick. Always is, and really glad to have you along with us here on Let's Get Growing. Have fun with the rest of your show, and we'll catch you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Right.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you very much. Oh boy, it was bound to happen eventually for our show to where we would have a situation similar to that. In fact, when we were planning to have him on, the idea was to have him there while he was doing his garden talk and everything, because that's just kind of how the dates lined up. But who knew that it was going to be such an, I don't know, I'll say kind of entertaining adventure. We've got to have one of these experiences for a live show. Like I said, we're doing all this live for the most part. We're on our 9th show, so everything's gone pretty well, but you got to expect some hiccups along the way with different situations. But again, though, Nick is a really great guy. I've really had some fun experiences with him, like I mentioned before earlier on, being able to go onto his radio show, take part in his television show, and to do all that sort of stuff. So he gave me some really kind of unique experiences in my whole, garden YouTube adventure, so it was really kind of important for me to kind of have him on our first run, our first spring season of Let's Get Growing. So no matter how it worked out or how we got him, it was great to have him here with us. And maybe somewhere down the road, like he said, we'll get him back on the show in a more controlled environment and be able to have just a little bit more of a deeper discussion on his garden story and all the different things that he does with gardening too. But you can also go down to the description below, and there's a link to his website, thingsgreen.com, and you can check out all those different types of segments that he's talking about that he does for his local news channels, his PBS television show, as well as links to his garden radio show, which is a really fun show. He answers all sorts of gardening questions, and he's like a lot of the different garden educators that we have on the show, plethora of gardening knowledge that he can share with you. So, and you can also find ways to catch up with him online, either through Facebook or Instagram and all of that, and kind of direct message him, ask him questions, all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure he would be willing to help. So thanks again, Nick, for taking your time out of your garden talk today and sharing with all of us. It certainly was fun. And also, I want to thank Laura Smith for joining with us today, too, from My Serene Garden. She really had a really great garden story to tell us and talk about her garden experience and how all of that has developed over the years from her as a young child to teaching her own children about gardening. So again, thank you to Laura for joining with us this week. And again, too, thanks to Darren for contributing your garden story. And if you would like to participate with the show by sharing a garden story with us, be sure to check out our website at letsgetgrowing.live. And you can hit that Get Involved tab again, as I mentioned earlier, at the top of the page. We have a little form there for you to fill out, and then maybe we'll feature your garden story on one of our upcoming episodes coming up here too. And I also want to mention to you again, too, one of the best ways that you can support our show here at Let's Get Growing is to support our sponsor, Ivy Organics. Go to ivyorganics.com. You can shop in their shop. They've got some really cool products, fertilizers, the 3-in-1 plant guard. They got other like live plant offerings that they have as well, too. Use our promo code GROW10, GROW10. And that'll get you 10% off of everything that they have in their shop, as well as helping support us again, like I said, on Let's Get Growing by doing that. So go check out Ivy Organics, definitely, and shop some of their really great things. Also, I want to mention that next week we are going to be coming to you all live from the United Kingdom. Well, actually, I'll be right here in my own home, but all of our guests will be joining us from the United Kingdom. We're going to have with us Tony O'Neill of Simplified Gardening on YouTube. He's got a really great gardening channel at Simplify Gardening, as well as he just published a new book that we'll talk about as well too. We'll have the channel of the week. Now, I'm really excited about this channel of the week too as well. I've been following Jason from the Cloud Gardener UK on Facebook and Instagram for several years now. He literally grows up on this really tall building. He's got a balcony, and he has this really wonderful balcony garden up there in this building in Manchester. And really excited about talking to him about all of that and everything, because that's kind of how I got my gardening story started, as far as growing fruits and vegetables and all of that. Was a cucumber on a balcony. And so I think that small space gardening is probably one of the coolest things, and a really fun thing for people to do, even if you have these really small spaces. So again, it'll be nice to talk to Jason from Cloud Gardener UK, as well as we'll be following Rachel Greenhill of Rachel's Allotment on Instagram and talking with her all about her allotment gardening, which is kind of like our community gardening that we have here in the States. So these will be some really fun conversations for our show next week from the United Kingdom. So I hope you all join with us to talk with all of these really great guests. It's been really awesome to have all of you here with us this week. And again, be sure to come join with us on our Let's Get Growing Facebook group. And from all of us here at Let's Get Growing, have a great week, and we'll see you all next Saturday.